Christmas is fucking cancelled. If you haven't seen, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, aka E3, aka Video Game fucking Christmas, has been cancelled for the second time in 3 years. Last year we got a full online version and it was... And obviously the year before that it was cancelled entirely because we were in the height of the pandemic. But this wasn't the beginning of the downfall of E3. For years before the pandemic, people had been complaining about the quality of E3, no more so than the industry itself, and how the digital world was potentially moving in a direction that wasn't conducive to the way that E3 had their expo set up. And the problem was that for these big gaming companies coming to show off their shit at E3, these issues were not being addressed accordingly. The thing is, the vast majority of people that engage with these things are doing so online. For context, the Game Awards in December 21 was held at the Microsoft Theatre in Los Angeles with around 7,000 people in attendance. The number of people that tuned in online, 85 million. E3 2019 had about 66,000 people in attendance, and if you want to book yourself a piece of floor space on the expo floor or a spot on the main stage, you are going to have to pay incredible amounts of money to do so. We're talking about up to millions of dollars worth of expenditure to pull something like this off. It's a lot of money. Now, many will say that's the price of business. It's the price of putting your product out there to the world in order to drive up sales. And I'd be inclined to agree, except as we just spoke about a second ago, most of that exposure and engagement is happening across the internet with people who aren't actually there. So going by that logic, why do the developers and publishers need to be there? And we aren't talking about small companies here that no one's heard of. We're talking about the world's biggest companies in the world's most lucrative form of media. People know who these companies are. Why do they need E3 to be the middleman? Well, the answer is that they don't, and we've seen that happening for a few years now. PlayStation State of Play events, Nintendo Directs, Inside Xbox conferences, because for huge companies like these three and other big titans of the video game industry, it makes much more sense for them to not pay over the odds and to do it on their own budget, in their own spaces, and on their own time. But there's still two things missing though from the fall of E3, I guess. Firstly, what about the smaller devs, indie developers, AA studios, hardware developers and so on? Where does the lack of a convention like E3 leave these guys? I'm talking about the kind of studios that wouldn't have the pull to attract thousands of people to an online conference of their own. Also, what about the sanctity of people coming together to celebrate video games? Well, step forward Mr. Geoff fucking Keighley, aka Gaming's Mr. Nice Guy, aka the E3 Killer. Summer Games Fest was Geoff Keighley's answer to 2020's lack of a summer gaming expo due to COVID. And whilst it was a little rough around the edges, you know, very much in its infancy, it still scratched that itch and it returned the following year a little better but still learning, and it went up against E3. This year though, it's going to go unopposed again because E3 have cancelled, but this time we're allowed to have people there. So what Geoff is kind of doing is meeting the industry in the middle. He's acting as the go-between between the fans and the industry, because what fans of the gaming world want to see is an industry event with a live element that people can go to if they choose to celebrate video games and video game culture, but also allowing companies to present their own showcases digitally and broadcast them from wherever and however they choose. There's also going to be a bunch of shows, both digital and live, at Summer Game Fest that will allow smaller devs to get involved in showcases that will still have reaches of into the hundreds of thousands. E3 have released a statement saying that they're apparently taking this year off to channel its energy and coming back bigger, better, stronger next year with a new improved E3 for us all. And whilst I want to say that I believe it, the realist in me is thinking, are you sure that this isn't more of a case of that you've lost the industry and none of the big hitters want to show off their new stuff at your expo? I just really can't see a way back for them next year. I can't imagine it, but you know, give it a shot. Don't get me wrong, E3's had a great ride, and like I said, I loved E3 in its prime, but the last few years have just been a constant stream of disappointment, with gaming's biggest names pulling out and the cancellations, and ultimately their failure to adapt to the rise of the digital world. And I really want to see Summer Games Fest fill that gap that's missing of an expo that kind of encapsulates all that gaming has to offer, and that space where devs save their biggest announcements to be revealed all in one space and in 1 week under one umbrella. Geoff, it's up to you now. It's on you. Save Video Game Christmas. Like and subscribe.